Take that consent away and the structure collapses. Once you stop agreeing to be lesser, those who relied on your compliance are suddenly irrelevant. They keep playing the old game, but you've already left the table. The season couldn't continue because its curriculum assumed you'd stay enrolled. You dropped the class permanently. Picture it like this. For years, you were renting a room in someone else's house of expectations. You paid with your confidence, your decisions, your inner peace. Then you discovered the deed was in your name the whole time. You walked into that house and locked the doors from the inside. The people who came knocking, demanding rent or approval, found the locks changed and the windows shuttered. They had no jurisdiction anymore. That is sovereignty. Your personal jurisdiction over your mind, your body, and your future. Reclaiming yourself also rewires perception. Where you once read insults as truths, you now read them as noise. Where you once saw traps, you now see tests you have already passed. The filters trauma installed begin to get uninstalled. You start to see people, situations, and motives for what they are, not what your fear taught you they were. That clarity is dangerous to manipulators and freeing to you. The season closes because the lesson has been internalized. Repetition becomes pointless when the learning has landed. And let's deal with the fear head on. What if reclaiming my life makes me lonely? What if I lose people? Yes, some doors will close. And that's the point. The rooms that can't hold your new boundary will fall away, revealing the space you actually need. Loneliness in this phase is not loss. It's renovation. It's the clearing of debris so new architecture can be built. Real sovereignty demands that you no longer mortgage your peace for company that takes without giving. Those who stay will respect your terms. Those who leave only prove why the season had to end. This is rebellion in its purest form. Not loud or vengeful, but complete. You rebel against being defined by someone else's script. You declare that your thoughts, your actions, and your destiny answer to you and you alone. That is the greatest coup. No more coercion, no more puppetry. Your life becomes self-authored, and nothing external can edit that manuscript without your consent. So stand firm, chosen ones. The season closed because you reclaimed the keys. You moved from passenger to proprietor, from victim to steward, from reactive to intentional. That ownership is not temporary. It's a new operating system. And under this new governance, the old cycles have no standing. You are sovereign now, and sovereignty is final. Number 6, returning is impossible because the old you no longer exists. You can't walk back. The old you is left at the entrance. They built the cage for who you used to be, not for the one who walked out and started building doors. My dear chosen ones, listen. The fiercest truth of transformation is uncompromising. You will never return because the person who entered that storm no longer exists. That's not a feel-good line. It's a final hard-edged fact. Life only repeats its harshest lessons for those who stay the same. But you changed at a level so deep that the pattern simply can't find purchase anymore. Think about a caterpillar and a chrysalis. The place that once fit your body was perfect for the old version of you. But metamorphosis isn't a surface update. It's a complete rewrite. You walked into the same circumstances as someone vulnerable, uncertain, shaped by fear and conditioned responses. You came out as someone with new instincts, new limits, and a new operating system. The prison wasn't only the people or situations around you. It was the you that agreed to be small. Once that version dissolved, the walls lost their meaning. You might be wondering right now, what if I get pulled back by old triggers? What if the same hands reach for me? That's a fair question. The difference is this. Triggers can still appear, but they no longer land the way they used to. Imagine an old lock and a new key. The key used to fit. Now it bounces off. Your responses have changed. Your boundaries have thickened. Your perception has sharpened so violently that the same tricks look obvious from a mile away. You don't engage the same games. You don't enter the same contracts. That's why return is impossible. Not because the world is kinder, but because you are different. They designed their traps for a version of you who still believed in their rules. Their systems were calibrated to control, to confuse, to wear down a particular configuration of hope and fear. But you reconfigured, you rewired. The same tactics become meaningless because your bandwidth has expanded and your tolerance narrowed. Where they expected collapse, you brought structure. Where they expected a reaction, you brought a boundary. Where they expected confusion, you showed clarity. That shift is permanent. It cannot be unlearned. Some of you worry, is this change for real, or is it just a temporary high change that lasts? Is not flashy. It's structural. It shows up as new instincts in your relationships, new filters for opportunity, new rules for how you let people close. It shows when you refuse to explain yourself to those who already ignored your truth. It shows when you choose calm over chaos because calm is more productive for the person you become. Temporary highs fade. Structural rewiring sticks. You've done the deeper work. The habits that got you trapped were dismantled, not masked. Here's the brutal encouragement. The world around you may stay the same, but it no longer contains you. You move beyond playing defense. You learn how to run the game. You don't need to prove anything to those who would have exploited you. You only need to protect the territory of your new self. That's why the old traps are irrelevant. They were never designed for your future, only your past. Remember the image of an old map. You used to have a route that fit an earlier version of your life. Now your terrain has shifted. The roads have changed. The bridges that once connected to dangerous places are gone from your map altogether. You don't get lost on old paths because you no longer carry the map that leads there. You possess a new chart drawn from lessons, scars, and sharpened intuition. So stand firm, chosen ones. If doubts whisper that you might regress, answer with evidence. New boundaries upheld, new decisions honored, new peace maintained. Your story was rewritten in real time. That remake is permanent. You walked in one person and walked out another, unrecognizable to the forces that intended to keep you small. The storm may exist still, but it cannot contain who you became inside it. This is liberation, not as escape, but as evolution. You aren't merely out of danger. You are beyond it. The cage was for the old you. The new you builds doors. Keep moving forward. Number 7, attacks failed because the wounds they once fed on have turned into armor. They stopped striking where there's no blood. Predators don't hunt what's whole. They hunt the opening. Close the wound, and the hunter leaves hungry. Chosen ones listen. This is the silent reason you look untouchable now. The attacks didn't stop because the world became kinder. They stopped because you stopped offering an invitation. For a long time, you were exposed. Raw edges, open sockets, places that bled under pressure. Predators, people who thrive on chaos, situations designed to destabilize toxic systems. They have a radar for that kind of soft tissue. Silence pierces deeper than any blade, which is why the knife they never touched still drew blood. Hear me clearly, my darling chosen ones. Cowards have long used silence as a weapon. Silence is dangerous, despite what the opponent would have you believe. Absence is not silence. It's a recommendation. It's not a blank area. It's a decision. And you live by that judgment, selected ones. As individuals and whole rooms turned their heads away, you could feel the weight bearing down on your chest. They were aware. It was verified by every sneer, every murmur, and every uncomfortable look. They saw your treatment. However, they crumpled like paper in the rain when it came time to rise and speak even a single word. They were still able to speak. They decided not to make use of it. And they will bear that decision for a lot longer than the wounds they inflicted on you. Consider it. When it came to your dignity, these same folks who can argue pointlessly over gossip till midnight and yell their heads out about sports suddenly became silent. Isn't that ironic? They were able to recall song lyrics, scandals, and statistics verbatim, yet they were unable to string 3 words together. That is incorrect. Silence wasn't a sign of weakness. It was a calculation. They left you unprotected while they weighed, measured, and protected themselves. Perhaps you've also wondered, why didn't they help me? Did I not deserve it? I'll respond to it for you. You were valuable. You have always been valuable. However, their quiet had nothing to do with your value. It has to do with their dread. When the fire is on someone else, people love to be safe. They narrated tales to themselves. I have no place there. There will be another speaker. I'd best not get involved. In their hearts, however, They were not impartial spectators. They actively took part in the betrayal of you. The deception that your agony was tolerable was reinforced each time they remained silent. This is the part they didn't anticipate. They should have been buried by their silence, but instead they were made public, revealed the weaknesses in their bravery, shown their moral brittleness, revealed that in order to maintain the luxury of their world, they need your pain. Because, let's face it, selected ones didn't have to bear the burden as long as you did. You turned to become their scapegoat, their buffer, and their shield. They paid for the serenity your wounds brought them by remaining silent. But pay close attention, selected ones. Being selected does not imply that life was simple. It indicates that you were the one with the strength to withstand what would have instantly broken others. While others sheltered behind cowardly umbrellas, you were the one who bore the storm. They attempted to destroy you, but you ended up becoming the clearest example of their incompetence. They detest that contradiction. Their quiet seems much louder because of your survival. I need you to stop for a second, chosen ones, before we go further. Please show your support by liking this video and subscribing to the channel if this message resonates with you and you sense the flame of truth burning within of you. That little gesture gives us the motivation to keep going and producing stuff that changes lives rather than merely taking up space. Every subscription and like takes more than a single click. It's your voice telling us, keep going. We need this. And with your help, we can keep giving you the unvarnished, energetic, transformative, and visceral realities you deserve. The guilty applaud when there is silence. Keep in mind, they were applauding your annihilation each time they remained silent. They were applauding falsehoods about injustice with standing ovations. However, they were unaware that the same quiet that betrayed you also served as a training ground for you. You developed unimaginable strength as a result of that. You grew proficient in perseverance while others hid behind excuses. You developed the ability to breathe under pressure, but they avoided discomfort. They were revealing their reliance on your demise, even if they believed they were defending themselves. Don't let them sell you that excuse. What if they truly didn't know what to say, you may ask? People are always able to protect their interests. They find words quickly enough when it comes to their reputation, their family, or their profession. They battle tooth and nail, write letters, and compose speeches. However, they abruptly ran out of things to say when it was you. That should not be seen as confused. Type amen to embrace the angel's blessings. Show your support by giving super thanks up to $20. It was a choice to choose their comfort above your suffering. This is when the roles are reversed. They believe that their silence deprives you of authority. They thought you wouldn't be believed. They thought you would shatter gently, vanish, and simplify their lives. However, the one factor they failed to take into consideration was your perseverance, selected ones. Every day you continued to stand and didn't give up. Their quiet turned into an admission. Because surviving something that could have destroyed someone doesn't just show how strong they are. It exposes the weaknesses of everyone else. In a metaphorical sense, you turned into the mirror they were unable to gaze into. Their cowardice was evident in your survival. Their emptiness was brought to light by your wounds. Their lack of courage was highlighted by your fortitude. They looked away for that reason. They saw too much truth about themselves, not because they didn't see. You can tell who is really with you when you stand by yourself. That's what you saw in quiet. Selected ones. It eliminated illusions. It exposed those who wagered against your survival, those who made fun of your pain, and those who laughed at it. However, their giggling was brief, since nothing makes a gathering more uneasy than when the individual they were expecting to break continues getting up. You ended up interrupting their story. They practiced the finale in whispers, and you changed it. Your entire presence today serves as evidence that truth cannot be obliterated by silence. Allow this to pierce your soul. Your frailty was never the reason for their quiet. It had to do with their boundaries. It had to do with the price they refused to pay, the solace they were unwilling to part with, the reality that they lacked the courage to face. Silence, they believed, was their defense. However, it gave them a brand. They believed you were buried, yet you're crowned. And the power of being selected is that chosen one. You reveal the quiet rather than just surviving it. You transform what was supposed to break you into the most audible demonstration of your might. And I'm grateful. Yes, you, the ones that were selected. Your presence is what sustains our movement, regardless of whether you are new to us or have been here with us through all the harsh realities. If this affects you, provide your assistance. If you're taking control of your loneliness and using it to your advantage, press like, subscribe, and leave a remark with a score of 77. Give the video to someone who should see it. That is genuine assistance. It's not a little click. It continues us producing daring, transformative material that supports the courageous and breaks the quiet. Let's get started step by step. Every sentence here will seem like a map of your journey, I promise, if you are actually selected. Let's begin. First, being silent does not equate to innocence. A treachery contract has been signed. Being silent is not neutral. A treachery contract has been signed. Your silence wasn't a coincidence. The page of their crime has your signature. Listen, my beloved selected ones. Be aware of this when they claim not to have known. The comfortable use such phrase in an attempt to gain moral approval for themselves. They witnessed it. They heard it. Every time you enter a room, they sense the electric unease. When you needed them most, the phrases that came out of their lips vanished. That hesitancy, confusion wasn't the problem. It was a computation. There was more to their stillness than nothing. They intentionally placed a boundary between you and their security. They didn't just let you down. They made the decision to keep things going. Additionally, that decision has a signature. Was I asking too much? Did I expect a miracle number? You may be wondering, yet in most cases, a human gesture was plenty. One glance, one statement, and one refusal to fall for the deception. Imagine a trial in which the accused rewrites history while all witnesses remain silent. Their living room turned like that. People are hardly impartial observers when they remain silent in the face of damage. They are the outcome's silent engineers. The framework that permitted the damage to continue was constructed by silence. The scene was established by silence. The abuser was able to behave without repercussions because of the silence. And remember, selected ones, that power comes from permission. Let's now deconstruct their justifications. I had no idea what to do. When it comes to their values, people always know what to do. They quickly find a voice when their reputation, income, or seats are under jeopardy. They will call meetings, send emails, and beg for answers, but not on your behalf. The justification is prepared and practiced for you. It's not easy. I'd rather not get involved. Translation: I value my seat more than your honor. I was terrified. I won't pretend that fear isn't genuine. But fearlessness is not the same as bravery. It's the decision to take action anyway. In actuality, those who say they are afraid also appear when the dangers are lower. A daring position on something that doesn't jeopardize their comfort, a dangerous social media view. Type amen to embrace the angel's blessings. Show your support by giving super thanks up to $20. After calculating the costs, they concluded that the danger was outweighed by your suffering. That isn't confusion. It's a moral judgment. I tried to help quietly. Okay, some will murmur. Public opposition is not the same as covert sympathy. Only when those doors are utilized to halt the damage can quiet solace behind the matter. Comfort and private solace are nothing more than a velvet robe concealing culpability when they turn into the currency of inactivity. Instead of a chorus of silent apologies that vanish when the pressure gets intense, you need defenders who will raise their voices where they need to. This is where the typical query comes in handy. Why would somebody decide to keep quiet? Because the abuser is not as protected by quiet. It safeguards a comfortable network. Dinners, promotions, club memberships, and reputations are all preserved. It helps individuals avoid difficult talks that might lead to uncomfortable self-disclosures. In summary, they often choose to remain silent in order to preserve the way of life that works for them. And their decision to remain silent was really the least expensive alternative when your selected ones were pushed forward as the issue. But listen, this isn't about giving them the authority they wanted. Being selected indicates that you have the strength to bear a burden that others were unable to. Their quiet exposed them, even if it was intended to bury you. Imagine them as individuals who used invisible ink to sign a contract. The words will become clear with time. Their biography turns into their "not my problem." The footnotes are written by your survival. Imagine a courtroom where witnesses have evidence in their hands, but conceal it rather than putting it on the table. Instead of being your lifeline, that proof turns into a shield for them. The evidence is in their possession like a negotiating chip. Silence is terrible to those who are chosen. In order to protect themselves, those who could verify your veracity by phone call, message, or first-hand report instead weaponized what they possessed. They turned the truth into power. Justice also suffers when the truth is compromised. Silence may seem like a test, and it was in many respects. When no one intervened, they wanted to test whether your spine would break. They believed that by your fall, they would be excused for doing nothing. However, that exam has already been passed by you. Their math failed each time you refused to fold. Their silence became a confession because of your perseverance. You toughened where they wanted to weaken you. You asserted dignity in a place when they anticipated surrender. The alchemy of being selected is that what was intended to shatter you turns into evidence of your resilience. Please keep this in mind. Being silent is not neutral. Furthermore, it is necessary to talk. A person is taking a side when they look the other way. It's the group that makes money off of your suffering. And keep in mind that silence has its own fingerprints, even if they attempt to rewrite history to make it seem like their hands were clean. A voice is still a voice, a vote for whatever was going on in your life. Thus, let the quiet of my beloved selected ones serve as a map. Type amen to embrace the angel's blessings. Show your support by giving super thanks up to $20. Let every silent look, every word you swallow, and every discussion you steer clear of teach you who to believe and who to ignore. It's not your job to discipline them. You must continue to move. In your tale, use their betrayal pact as a witness. You won't be erased by their signature. It will demonstrate the price of your fortitude. The words will accuse them, not you, when that quiet sign sheet is read aloud one day when truth demands reckoning. Breathe now. You are stronger here even if you didn't want to be picked. Hold on to that power. The next phase is on the horizon. Second, they didn't want to spend their money on you since comfort was their currency. Their currency was comfort. They opted for the silence that preserved their lives. Their monthly rent was the source of your anguish. To ensure that their apartments would never become chilly, they paid it in quiet. Listen carefully, my lovely chosen ones. Cowardice like this wasn't an accident. It was a ledger. They examined the balance sheet and chose the side that preserved their comforts when it came down to you versus their stability. Imagine a room full of individuals who would risk a trend, a tweet, or a hot opinion for something that improves their image, but who fold like napkins when defending your dignity, may lose them a dinner invitation or ruin their weekend plans. Confusion is not what that is. It's a calculation. It's exhilarating to be comfortable. It makes individuals stingy with bravery and proficient in excuses. Early on, they learned how to safeguard the little safety nets they had created, such as parental approval, boss favors, and the cozy feeling of belonging. And they opted for the gentle solution of quiet when the truth endangered those nets. Did they not see me, you ask? Were they blind? The number. They had great vision. After calculating the costs, they concluded that they couldn't afford to lose your life. Consider how many times you were the one carrying the turmoil, while others were gathering the remnants of harmony. In order to keep them dry throughout the storm, you served as a human barrier. Their universe was level as long as you took the knocks. Removing the shield would reveal the damage. Who would want to be the next target? They remained silent because they needed what your agony provided, not because they were emotionless. Convenience, calmness, and continuity. They used their silence as a self-preservation tactic. This is the ruthless math. The majority of individuals see morality as a business. They balance the personal cost of remaining silent against the societal cost of speaking. Will I lose my network, my career, and my place at the table? Due to the temporary protection of quiet, the math often works in favor of it. However, such security is not free. It was purchased using your account. It turns you into a throwaway commodity, and it is a betrayal of that type that cuts deeply. They didn't despise you. It's because you interfered with their desired way of life. The issue shifts from why they didn't help to what their life meant, if not loyalty, when you find they put comfort above you. The response is intense and illuminating. For them, your humanity was less important than their existence at that very time. Later on, they'll attempt to frame it in lofty terms. I was defending my family. I had obligations. I did not want to create a commotion. Don't be fooled by the silken words, however. Protection is not protection that necessitates the injury of another. It's a deal. When responsibility is used as an excuse for cowardice, it won't protect you. To fall asleep at night, they will tell themselves tales, but the ledger remains unchanged. Their decision was shown by the comfort they accumulated. They believed that keeping quiet protected their reputation. Rather, it weakened it. The exact thing that marks them will gradually erode the barrier they created out of your suffering. Does that mean I was only a stray cost to them? I understand what you're thinking, but the answer is no. You were never just collateral, chosen ones. Being selected indicates that you have the strength to endure what others were unable to. Your value was not diminished by their failure to stand. Theirs was marked. You weren't weaker because of your endurance. It exposed their lack of bravery. And all of this is dangerously ironic. The conveniences they protected are fleeting. Popularity wanes, occupations shift, and tables shift. They created fragile, little empires on your pain. What will they have left when that convenience falls apart? Just a history of decisions that are difficult to forgive. Because guilt never goes away. It is a compound. Therefore, use this as a weapon and a lesson. It was never by coincidence that they were comfortable. It was a decision. Allow that information to liberate you from self-loathing concerns and focus your efforts on creating a life independent of the cowardice of others. Maintain your composure. Be the one to speak out when the truth needs to be heard. Because you are forged for these times if you are selected. You will remain standing while they calculate the cost of their quiet as their comforts disintegrate. Breathe now, those who have been selected. It's the next truth. Third, the audience wasn't still. They were calculating your anguish. The throng was not defenseless. The math was being done by them. Their silence should not be interpreted as astonishment. Your dignity was classified as an acceptable loss on a ledger that was being balanced. Hear this clearly, my lovely chosen ones. Human weakness was not the cause of the scene you recall. Small judgments were made in the boardroom under the appearance of inactivity. Your surroundings weren't taken by surprise. Their numbers were running. If I talk, who benefits? If I don't, who loses? What am I willing to give up for the truth? Additionally, your name was the less expensive line item when the totals were in. When they refuse to do anything, they are hiding behind that calculating, clinical, cold, and cruel persona. Did they really know? Were they really thinking that deeply? Is a question you can ask yourself when you relive that moment. When reputation, comfort, and benefit are at stake, ordinary situations become into moral accounting. Observe the speed with which the chorus finds a voice when it suits them. To show allegiance to authority, to protect a bargain, or to support colleague. When the stakes are on their shoulders, people don't just start being brave. When action is recommended by the cost-benefit analysis, courage shows up on schedule. According to the estimate, quiet was less expensive for you. Silence prevailed. This is the section that hurts the most because it substitutes condemnation for sympathy. Forgiving someone who panics is simpler than forgiving someone who intends to remain in one place. Anxiety is a human weakness. Making a calculation is a moral decision. A few of them even set up shop to take advantage of your fall. Partnerships, promotions, and the opportunity to fill a position left empty by your departure. Others struck discreet agreements. If you keep me safe, I'll ignore it. Bravery wasn't the foundation of the ladder they climbed. It was built out of your suffering. Furthermore, don't believe anybody who claims that the crowd was uniform. No, it wasn't. Similar math, different looks. They all performed the same equation. The risk-averse, the opportunists, the busy, and the exhausted. Silence has the same value as money. Spending collectively buys disaster for one and comfort for many. That is its nasty economy. Injustice ceases to seem like an emergency and begins to feel like policy when it benefits a certain group. Couldn't a single voice have made a difference, you ask? Yes, sometimes no. However, what many fail to realize is that the expense of being the only dentist was included into the crowd's estimate.